New developments in this pending case from the Mueller probe. Prosecutors now planning to make Roger Stone's wingman testify at his trial in November. The witness is named Andrew Miller. Now, he fought a Mueller subpoena for a year, and he's worked for Stone for about a decade, including joining him at the 2016 GOP convention, a period when Trump was taking over the Republican Party and fallout continued from those Russian hacks to help Donald Trump. Now, Miller's testimony rounds out prosecutors' plans. They'll use him and Randy Credico to argue that Stone knew what he was doing when he allegedly obstructed the Mueller probe and tampered with witnesses. Stone was arrested on a 7-count indictment: obstruction, 5 counts of false statements, including lying to Congress about WikiLeaks, and then 1 count of witness tampering against the potential witness and now confirmed witness, Randy Credico. Mr. Stone has pleaded not guilty. I am joined by former federal prosecutor John Flannery. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Here we are. This is a reminder to everyone that cases take time. Mueller has closed up shop. Some people he targeted are in jail, like Mr. Cohen and Mr. Manafort. Others awaiting trial, like Mr. Stone, who, as we mentioned, is legally presumed innocent. What does it tell you that the prosecutors who continue Mueller's work have zeroed in basically on these 2 witnesses, Mr. Miller, who's less known, and Mr. Credico, who some viewers may remember?
Well, they identified them in the indictment. I mean, not by name, but person 1 and person 2. And it was pretty clear what they had to say. And you've had an interesting exchange with Mr. Corsi in the past about how he told the truth about his lies. And the lies were to, get the Senate and the House off what really happened there, which is what communications and how they were made with WikiLeaks, and they could have anticipated and known when the tranche of documents was going to come down, particularly the October 7th developments. And then Credico is in a position to have actually had Assange, who's now sitting in the London Tower as a guest on a show. And we're waiting until next year for Assange to come to America. And so we have Stone, who's in the past said he'd like to have Assange come and testify for him. But he has another witness he could use. He could ask Mr. Trump to come for him.
Well, I'm sure you would like that. I think when it comes to Credico, though, our job is not just to look at the negative information, and we've covered there is a lot of negative stuff on Mr. Stone, but also to look at what his defense counsel will be able to do. They will try to show a kind of a ridiculousness or a silliness to all of this, in the same way that we hear sometimes people say, oh, the defendant said words that sound bad, but they weren't serious, they weren't literal, they weren't knowing, they weren't, serious. They were, if nothing else, jokes. Listen to what Randy Credico told me when I pressed him really on, well, why did this all happen? Why was Roger lying to the feds about him and others? Take a look. Now that the probe is over, do you have any idea why it was important to Roger to blame you for something that Mueller found involved Corsi?
It's a conundrum inside a riddle, inside a Rubik's Cube. I really do not know why he had to do that. If he had just told the truth, I wouldn't be here today. None of us. I don't even know why he even went before the House Intel Committee. He could have invoked the 5th. There is no reason to do it.
Well, John, don't you think that Mr. Stone's lawyers will have some argument on their side to say this wasn't that serious and to really go at these witnesses, including Credico?
Well, I think that what you have there is it was better to have Credico look like he was the player, because to go with Corsi brought it closer to Stone. So I think that he was a sacrifice. And he said he couldn't understand it, but that's the way I think these people operate. And Corsi was in communication supposedly with Credico to have an access to Assange, which appears to have been established in other means. And you talked about, is this all a joke? And the trouble with that theory of defense is that there are so many communications and so many questions. And I do wonder if the Cohen conversation that he overheard between Stone and Trump will find its way in as a similar act or part of an action.
Which is that's a big interesting one. My last question for you is, do you think Roger Stone would take the stand, and should he?
I wouldn't put him on the stand. I'll tell you why. In every case, civil and criminal, when you put the client on the stand, they make real things that are questionable. So if the theory of the defense in this case is to beat up the government and say, das macht nix, there's nothing here, then what they should do is you keep them off the stand and say, oh, he didn't show their case, particularly if they hurt the witnesses who have, they've been on both sides of these issues at different times. And you're right, that's the damaging thing for a jury to hear. But, birds of a feather flock together, and that's what juries also decide.
Would you be willing to come back and cover the case with us when it goes to trial?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? Keep me away with a stick. Okay, I'd like to do that.
I would like that. I think some of our viewers hopefully would too, because John Flannery, former federal prosecutor, knows his way around these kind of trials. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.